Alternative win condition. With Janelle and Will. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Alternate Win Condition. I am Janelle and with me is Will.
Yo, act like you never seen a white enchantment before. Jaws all on the floor like Pelucanus and Corsair just burst in the door and started whooping your ass worse than before. They're manifested, but they're flipping up on the table. Ah! It's the start of the... Oh, wait. No way. You're kidding. He didn't just gain 500 life, did he?
That's still awesome. I don't even know, man. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the shenanigans that are going on in the new set coming out. But before we do, we're going to talk about the shit we did this week.
Magic the Gathering. Get the cards, play the game. Hope to win, but as we all know, it's not about winning.
Draft.
Commander.
Trading.
Legacy.
Modern.
Standard.
Tilt.
Table flip.
This Week in Magic starts now.
So, Will, what is it you were up to in this last week in Magic?
Well, let's see. The last week in Magic, since our last episode, I actually went to the Star City Games Open in Baltimore. It was a modern Open. It was also the largest Open at that time for the new sort of format since
the
SCG,
new modern.
Yeah, it's the new modern, but it was also the first big modern tournament after the bannings, I think.
Yes, it
and
was.
It was also the first one since the Pro Tour.
Oh, okay.
But it was also the largest for Star City Games, and they've gone to the new 2-day structure for opens.
Mm-hmm.
For once, they actually did require a record of 7 or 2 to make day 2.
Oh, wow.
So
that's not common?
No, 7-2. Usually, like, we started off with 700 something people. We ended the end of day 1. There was exactly 64 people. It was at the exact cutoff. Because usually either top 64 or 7-2 or better.
Mm-hmm.
So there was exactly 64 people that made day 2. In the Open, I ended up only going 2-4. Didn't play too well, but I had fun. That's the important thing.
Definitely.
And then the next day they have 2 Premier IQs, one for standard, or basically it's standard or legacy, whichever one's the opposite of the Open that's actually being played.
Okay.
So I decided to play in the legacy one. Ended up going 1-4-1 with my Jeskai deck.
Nice.
And so yeah, not too bad, not too great, honestly. I'm actually looking probably in the next couple weeks to try to change everything up. Mm-hmm. And go into maybe Grixis. Play
boo,
with Tassiger.
I don't like those colors.
Tassiger.
More boo?
Tassiger.
I don't like Tassiger at all.
Tassiger is amazing, though. And the fact that you can easily get him for 1 mana in those formats is awesome.
Yeah, but fuck that card.
It's like, beyond that, I had my Modern Legacy during the week, and then Friday Night Magic, I decided to try something a little new. Mm-hmm. There was a deck that was being talked a lot about during the week called Green-White Devotion, which is basically a Green Devotion deck splashing white for Mastery of the Unseen.
And is from your wrap.
Yep, and that is from my wrap. That's the white enchantment I was talking about. And the things that this enchantment can do are absolutely insane because, one, anytime you flip a creature face up, you gain life equal to the number of creatures that you have on the board. And the second part is you can pay 3 and a white and just manifest the top card of your library. It gets around spell or counter spells, everything else. It's like they can't respond to it with a counter spell. It just comes up. And so it's basically a Green Devotion show with that wrapped around it. Now, I personally took the list that they had and made a few small tweaks to it because one of the things that I noticed people were talking about it is that you can get into a really bad board stall where, you both, especially in the mirror match where you have, 40 some odd creatures on the field. every time you flip something up, even if it's an Elvish Mystic, you're gaining 40-something life. So to sort of break the board stall, what I decided to do was I took out a couple of the Mastery in the Unseens, because I think once you get up to past 2, you're really just hitting diminishing returns at that point. Because the second ability does absolutely nothing, and the first one does double up at least, but still not worth it, I think, having more than a couple in there. So I decided to add Elspeth Sun's Champion in there for several reasons. One, it can create 3 soldier tokens, which help towards that life gain portion of it. But 2, if I can get the ultimate off, then now all my stuff is +2/+2 and flying, on top of everything else that they already have. And I don't see how a lot of the green decks can get past that, because they don't really handle flyers that well to begin with. So it was some sort of kind of a mirror breaker thing that occurred. At Friday Night Magic, I ended up going technically 3-1. One of the matches, I was late to the first match because I was on a phone call that I had to take. And so my record showed 2-2, but me and the other guy played out that I had to give the match win to just because I was late, and I would have crushed him if we would have played. It would not have even been close.
Lucky him.
So it's 3-1. Then the next day there was an invitational qualifier at the store, and ended up making, it was a 25, 26 person tournament, made top 8 of that with the same deck. Didn't make it past top 8, but the big thing is I got the last points required to get a invite to the Invitational at Richmond in actually just a couple of weeks now. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully I'm right now the main thing I'm trying to do is try to get off work so I can actually go to it.
You're not sure if you can go?
Yeah, well, see, it starts on Friday at noon, and so it goes Friday at noon into Saturday into Sunday. So if I can't get off work on Friday, then chances are no, I probably will not be going, because I don't want to go just for an open at this point. So since I just did that a couple weeks ago anyway. So chances are if I can get Friday off, I'm going to the Invitational. If not, I probably will not be going to the open part of it.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, but that was my week. Do you know what was your weekend Magic this week?
You know, I honestly don't remember.
It's like just.
I had to cancel last Friday, so I didn't get to go last Friday. And before that, that's way too far back in time. I can't remember. But instead, I got to go to AllCon. Yay! So AllCon is. It's an anime convention held here in Dallas every year. It's not exactly, magic, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I got to dress up in my cosplay, and, I enjoyed myself. So, sorry, Magic, you took a backseat.
Oh, I can't blame you for a big convention like that, so definitely can't blame you at all for that.
It was a lot of fun. My cousin dressed up as Sebastian from Black Butler, and I dressed up as Grell from the same anime, and I ran around chasing her, trying to give her hugs. Oh. It was so much fun.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Sounds like it was a really good time. So
it was. Okay. So that's enough of our week, I think. Yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. Then we're going to get right into the topics, and we're going to talk about the PAX East announcements that happened about a week ago now, maybe a little more. And the first and most important, as far as I care, is Dragons of Tarkir. And here is the video for that for those of you watching on YouTube. Or it will be here in a minute.
Our world of Tarkir was once a tomb. A graveyard for dragons, hunted and killed by the ancient Khans. But I was given a chance to change Tarkir's fate. I traveled back before the dragons died, and tipped the scales of history. When I returned to my time, I found you, Ugin, alive. The dragon tempest never ceased. Dragonkind never died out. The Khans fell. And in their place rose 5 elder dragons. The Dragon Lords claimed their rightful place in command of the world. 5 new dragon clans grew around him, forging a new history from the old. This is our world now, Ugin. This is our Tarkir. Where once the clans fought the dragons, now the dragons and the clans are one. I too have changed. I've thrown aside my own past. I'm a curiosity now, an orphan of time. But now, Tarkir is the world I've always longed for. Now, I fly with dragons!
This is a very exciting new trailer.
It was like,
And I had it just pointed out to me recently that the item he uses to resurrect Ugin was in the last trailer for Khans of Tarkir was attached to his weapon. So I like how they...
well, wasn't some sort of like a, and I'm gonna probably get a little bit further down the list by what I'm about to say, but wasn't it like a Hedron, something along?
Yeah, a Hedron, which is the shit they use from
Zendikar.
Thank you, which we will talk about later. Yes.
We were talking about that in a moment. So, but anyway, getting back to the trailer, one of the things that, and I think Wizards took the story in a very interesting place, because I originally thought the way that they were going to shape the story into Dragons of Tarkir was going to be like, okay, sort of a be careful what you ask for, you just might get it sort of situation, where Sarkhan went back, he saved Ugin from being killed, and because he did this, he also wiped out most of the humans on Tarkir, and it was just going to be dragons. It was going to be dragons all the time. Dragons. Thankfully, the way that they worked the story out is that actually don't get me wrong, according to the story part from Khans into dragons, a lot of people did die. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying nobody died, including Tasigur the Golden Fang, sort of around the neck of Silumgar. I don't want to go too far down that road, but yeah, he's hanging there. The way they took the story is more of a, okay, yes, now it's not so much that the people got wiped out, it's more that the people all follow the dragons now. They are the dragons are the dragon lords, and they all follow them now, versus following the Khans, which were the Khans of Tarkir. And some people got upgrades, like in this new storyline, like Narset becomes a planeswalker, which we won't go too far, again, because that's getting more into spoilers, and hopefully we can talk about some of that during our next episode. But some people got really bad downgrades. For example, Zergo Helm Smasher. He went from being, a badass legendary creature 7/2 to a little 2/2 for 1 red. It's like he got downgraded considerably. So
does no longer smash things.
Well, no, he strikes bells. He doesn't smash helms anymore. He strikes bells.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep. So, but the other big things that came from the Dragons of Tarkir announcements at PAX East, at that point they had already released Narset Transcendent as a planeswalker, but they also announced Sarkhan Unbroken, which strangely enough, in this whole set that we're talking about, the allied colored pairs, like, white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green, white. In the set where we're focusing on that, Sarkhan is actually Teamer.
Yeah, right?
From Khans. So he's a 2 and Teamer, so it's red, green, blue. And he has he may be unbroken, but he is broken as hell when it comes to a card. It's like, just the abilities that he has. And I think we're going to see a Teamer control deck with him as one of the finishers, I think. Or more mid-range kind of planeswalker. It's definitely not going to be like the Teamer Monsters build that we have right now. I think it's going to be more of a Teamer mid-range to a Teamer control deck that will really be able to take advantage of it.
Well, whatever they do, I'm going to be interesting to see it, and I'm going to be very irritated by it.
Yeah, it's like, because, chances are it's going to be very counterspell heavy, and, it's going to be bad.
It's going to be irritating, yeah.
But the other thing that I found really interesting from the Dragons of Tarkir PAX announcements is they announced a card that I honestly think is a common. But the reason why they announced it there is because it has direct ties to one of the Khans of Tarkir cards, and one of the most popular Khans of Tarkir cards, which was Savage Punch, or Bear Punch, depending on how you want to call it. It's like, but it basically shows Surrak punching a bear. Just walking up to a bear, just slamming the shit out of him. For no reason, pretty much, as far as I know.
Because he can.
Because he can. However, in Dragons of Tarkir, there's a card called Epic Confrontation, which is Surrak still punching, but he's punching a dragon this time. And I honestly like the artwork for this much better because you see, like, dragon teeth flying everywhere. And just like... And it basically is the exact same card. The only difference is you don't have to have a ferocious ability with it. It's just +1, +2, and fight. So it's probably actually a better card than Savage Punch, but it was just funny to kind of see how they do the dual timeline things. And there's actually a bunch of others, again, that probably getting more into spoilers that we can talk about next week.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about spoilers right now.
Yeah. But there are a bunch of things where it's kind of like you see it from one timeline, you see it in the other, and it's very interesting. So, and I think that's all the Dragons of Tarkir announcements that they had.
Yes, that was everything. So now we're going to tell you about some of the other announcements, like Modern Masters 2015 has an official release date of May 22nd. They've also said they're going to release some really cool cards that have not been reprinted yet and make me very excited.
Well, the one that hasn't been reprinted as of yet is Karn Liberated. And that card is very interesting in this set because we already know from the initial announcement that we're getting Emrakul in Modern Masters. So chances are there's going to be some sort of a mana ramp theme in the deck and we may even get the Tron lands.
What deck are you talking about?
Is like, I'm talking about Modern Masters 2015. I'm talking about the actual set itself.
Yeah, but you keep saying deck.
Well, I was like, okay. In Modern, there is a deck called Tron.
Right.
And it involves what's called the Urza lands, which is, I think, Urza Mine, Urza Tower, Urza Power Plant. When you have all three lands combined, they make a total of 7 mana. If you have all three on the board at the same time, that's typically called Tron. The reason Karn Liberated is so important is because he's a colorless planeswalker for 7 mana. And he's a very powerful planeswalker for 7 mana, including probably the weirdest ultimate of all of them, which is you restart the game. But it's going to be reprinted in Modern Masters 2015. But the reason that I went into it is I think there's going to be some sort of a mana. There's going to be ways to produce a lot of mana in Modern Masters to get to Emrakul, to get to Karn.
Not necessarily.
Well, Emrakul is 15 mana.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're going to come out with it in the set.
Well, Emrakul's already been announced. Emrakul is in Modern Masters 2015.
That's not what I was talking about. That doesn't mean there's going to be mana pumps in the set.
Okay.
Just because they have high-cost cards. Because I'm of the opinion that Modern Masters is printed less to be a set in and of itself than it is to help stabilize the market.
Well, I agree. I agree to a certain point. However, the fact of the matter is Modern Masters is still going to be a drafted set. It's going to be a set that's drafted together.
Not by very many people. They're not going to go out there and have a draft tournament for Modern Masters very often.
They're having one big one in Grand Prix Las Vegas.
Yeah, one big one. And I didn't say it wasn't going to happen. I said it wasn't going to happen very often. Because that's expensive as fuck.
Well, yeah, when the draft costs $30 just because the packs themselves cost $10 a piece, that's not going to be something that's going to happen.
So, like I said, that doesn't mean they're necessarily making it super draftable.
Well, that's true. Well, the other issue, and this gets into the other card that's being reprinted, is Tarmogoyf, which there was a lot of questions. He was in the first Modern Masters. There was not 100% he was going to be in this Modern Masters, but he is going to be there. And I think that's part of it is, one, to try to drive the cost down. However, that's also where I have my sort of complaint. I'm glad Tarmogoyf is going to be there. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy he's going to be in there. I've never gotten a Tarmogoyf. I'm hoping more than anything else when I open a pack of Modern Masters to get a Tarmogoyf. However, printing him at Mythic Rare is the issue. Is if they're really wanting to drive the price down on Tarmogoyf from being an over $200 card, then they probably shouldn't put it in a thing that the rarity that's maybe one of every 10 packs. You might get a Mythic Rare, then you have that split between 15 cards that are all Mythic Rares.
It could be that they're trying to also keep a balance with the price. They want Tarmogoyf to come down a little. They don't want him to come down a lot. And that, if that's the case, a good compromise would be to limit his rarity.
Well, I agree to a certain extent. However, the main issue with Tarmogoyf has and always been the price. It is like, because it's probably, of all the cards in Modern, it is probably the most cost prohibitive card. Hell,
Okay.
I mean, he honestly gives, dual lands, some of the dual lands in Legacy a run for their money in terms of how expensive he is. So,
And there's a good chance that they wanted him to keep his price so that people continue to play around the price bracket. People don't lose a lot of money who already have the Tarmogoyf. So they're bringing it down a little to basically stabilize that it could get more and more and more and more expensive.
if after Modern Masters 2015, if Tarmogoyf is below $175 after the release of Modern Masters, I'll be shocked. I really will. It's like, and I mean, they may purposely put him in more slots in the Mythic Rare versus the other Mythic Rares that are going to be there, but it's like they got to do something, I think, because it's such a popular card, and there's so many people who want to get their hands on the card, but it's just so cost prohibitive.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is perhaps they wanted to do a little of both. Open it up to a whole bunch of people, but at the same time, keep it from getting into everyone's hands so they don't have to ban it.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I don't think because I mean, Tarmogoyf is a great card. It's not broken by any stretch of the imagination, I don't think.
Well, you'd look at it that way, and neither was Birthing Pod.
Well, no, see, Birthing Pod was broken because you didn't get to play with cards that with very high mana costs that you have no right in playing in Modern. I mean, there's just no, unless you're doing something stupid like, well, not stupid, but something like where you produce a lot of mana. Again, going back to kind of Tron. Okay, I would expect a Tron deck to play high mana cost stuff. That's not an issue. But, being able to sacrifice creatures to get, 5-6 drops in Modern.
But it takes you such a long time to get there.
It does.
And it's so easy to stop.
Very true. It's like, and I mean, who knows? It's like, right before Dragons of Tarkir releases, there's a new banned and restricted list update. I'm personally not expecting any changes, but they may come back and say, you know what, we'll bring Birthing Pod back. We just didn't want it for the Pro Tour.
I find that very unlikely, but
I find it unlikely too. But it's something that might happen. It's like, actually, if anything, if there is, I'm gonna go ahead and call this now. If there is going to be any change to the banned restricted list, it's going to be Amulet of Vigor is banned. It is like,
I don't think enough people were really playing that to get it banned.
well, true, but the problem is WotC has a kind of an unspoken rule about combo decks in Modern, and the rule is that the combo cannot occur before turn 4. If you're consistently winning a game on turn 3 or turn 2, that's something they really don't want in the Modern format. They want that in Legacy, where you have your Force of Wills, you have other ways that you can handle that type of combo. So that's kind of where I'm thinking that if Amulet of Vigor gets banned, it's going to be because of it can consistently do what it's doing on turn 2, and even people have gotten basically kills on turn 1 with the deck. I don't think it's an issue of a lot of people play it. I think it's an issue of it sort of breaks the rules of what they're wanting to do in Modern.
Mm-hmm. That's a possibility, yeah.
And that's sort of why I'm thinking that if I'm not even expecting it to be on. I'm literally expecting, because since we just had a banned and restricted update, I'm literally expecting no changes to be made to it. So I'm not expecting it, but if anything does show up on it, it's going to be Amulet of Vigorous in Modern.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, now unbannings may be something different. Again, I'm not anticipating
We're
it.
really off topic here, but
Okay.
yeah. So Modern Masters May 25th. Tarmogoyf and Karn Liberated are the big, in my opinion, reveals.
So far, I think there'll be a couple others. I think we'll see.
We'll definitely see more reveals, but we haven't seen anything yet. So next up, that was announced at PAX East is Magic Origins.
Yep, and
the set, not the game. We're talking about the set.
Yep.
And that's going to be released officially on July 17th.
Yep. And to the surprise of nobody, because everybody picked up pretty quickly on the creatures turning into planeswalkers. And that's exactly what happens in Magic Origins, is we have legendary creatures that start off and they meet some criteria and flip into their planeswalker version, which I think is awesome in terms of the way of telling the story for the game. The one card they've revealed actually is Liliana, Heretical Healer. I think, if I remember correctly, I think looking at the card, you have to have a creature that...
Liliana's switch is when you are...
You have to have a creature that dies.
Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile Liliana, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control, and then you also get a 2/2 black zombie creature token.
Which is, again, kind of going into the story side of it is amazing, because that's how she got her spark, is to going from healer to necromancy. So a creature dies, she says, "You know what? I'm going to bring it back," and then that clicks her spark into Planeswalker mode. So I sort of like that. I really do.
I just like how easy it is to get her to flip.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like, and honestly, I hate to say this, kind of going back to a little bit of Mastery of the Unseen. I could see a situation where you play Mastery, you manifest the creature side, then right before a creature dies, you decide to flip it up, and then immediately make it into a planeswalker so they don't have a chance to respond to it.
Yeah.
It's like, I could see some sort of little shenanigans with that. I think it would be kind of fun. But that's only one. We know we're getting 5 walkers.
I'm hoping all the walkers are going to end up being flips. I really like the way it plays out.
Oh, they actually said that all 5 of the main story planeswalkers, Liliana, Chandra, Jace, Gideon, and Nissa, will all be flipped like that. They will all have something,
Yeah, that's really going to switch up the format. It's going to make it very interesting. I want to play Black again so bad after seeing her, because she's just going to wreck face. She costs 3. She's a 2/3 with lifelink, and she basically says, "You can't kill my shit."
Yeah, if you attempt to kill my shit, then the only way to get around that is to wipe the board and wipe her with it. This is like, that's literally the only way to not have her thing triggered.
Or you remove her first, but still, you have to deal with her.
You do have to deal with her, yeah, which I think is very great. The other thing that they also talked a little bit, and before PAX East, they started talking about what different planes the planeswalkers would be originally from. Nissa, with pretty much no surprise, because Nissa, I think, was originally released in the original Zendikar block. This is going to be from Zendikar. Now, the one that surprised me is the second one they announced, which is Gideon. Even though it's a set that literally just came out about a year ago, Gideon is actually from Theros.
Okay.
Which I find that very interesting, because he's been around the story so long, and yet we just did Theros.
I like that they roll all their old stuff into their new stuff.
I like that too. I do. But the most interesting, I think this came up as a question during the PAX East kind of question portion of it, is that when Elspeth and Kiora got to when Elspeth and Xenagos got to Theros originally, all the gods were present except one, the green-red god. And of course, going through the story, we know Xenagos becomes the green-red god. But that means that there was a absence in the green-red god spot. A lot of people are saying that Gideon was the one who actually killed the original Green Red God. And that's why when they got there, that was the temple that was abandoned, because there was no Green Red God to begin with.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I like that too, but again, it also makes a lot of sense when you go kind of going to the flow of the story. It makes a lot of sense, especially when you get to why Heliod felt it was necessary to kill Elspeth in the story. Because if she was the only planeswalker to ever kill a god, that'd be like, okay, well, that's kind of an overreaction to her being able to kill a god.
But she's not.
But if she was the second planeswalker to kill a god, then I can see where Heliod would be like, okay, these planeswalkers are really powerful.
We can't have this nonsense.
We can't have this going on. Like, it's like Gideon did it and Elspeth did it. Like, okay, we got to kill Elspeth. So,
kill them all. Kill them all.
Eventually, I think once we get back to a Theros block 1, we're gonna get Elspeth back eventually, and I'm thinking it's gonna be a black-white version, like she's trying to fight through the underworld to get back, which I think would be kind of cool. But
very cool.
But again, it sort of makes kind of the whole story a little bit more interesting, because now it makes sense. It's like, okay, killing Elspeth seemed like a little overreaction, but now when you realize someone else did it before her, like, okay, all right,
right,
I can understand this now.
So, Magic Origins, in my opinion, is just getting more and more and more interesting. I can't wait to fucking play this in Standard. It irritates the shit out of me that it's not the next one coming out.
I know, yeah.
Whatever, I guess I'll have to be patient or something.
I was like, well, I mean, admittedly, though, we had a very short gap between Fate Reforged and Dragons of Tarkir. Literally, it seemed like a month and a half.
Yeah, that irritated me too, but for totally different reasons, most of which have to do with money. Yeah. But, I wasn't going to complain about that. I just want Magic Origins out. That's what I'm complaining about. I want Magic Origins out.
Yeah, I'm sort of excited to see that too. I definitely want to see, because I think we know kind of where at least one of the other planeswalkers are from. In terms of Jace, he's got to be from Ravnica, I would assume. That's where Jace's story always took place. We'll
find out. And in the meantime, we're going to talk about the new Magic Origins Duels, so the video game that will be coming out July 17th.
Yep. Well, I don't think they've given an exact date, but we're assuming it's going to be somewhere around the release of Magic Origins. So, just because this is the last core set, they were doing like Magic 2015, Duels of the Planeswalkers, stuff like that. So we're assuming this is going to be coming around, since this is kind of their new setup. It's going to be coming out somewhere around the same time as Magic Origins. We don't have an exact date yet, though.
Okay, well, either way, we're going to be replacing Duels of the Planeswalkers, which was a terrible fucking shitty game.
Well, in respect, the 2015 was a shitty version. The 2014 actually was pretty good.
Whatever, terrible fucking shitty game. But this new game is going to be free to play. So if it is shitty, I can't complain.
At least it doesn't cost you anything. So,
exactly.
And I think that's good. Honestly, I hope some places like Magic Online would take a clue from that and just go, where you get the cards, or you can earn the cards and you never have to actually buy them online. But yeah, so, and I actually think they released a trailer, I think, for Magic Origins.
They did, but we don't have it.
We don't have it?
And
okay.
Those of you paying attention to the YouTube realized I played the Battle for Zendikar trailer. Shh.
It's like, well, since we're talking about Battle for Zendikar anyway, we might as well, I guess, jump into that. That's going to be the fall 2015 set, is Battle for Zendikar, playing that a lot of Magic players have been wanting to go back to Zendikar.
Yes! More fucking full art lands! Give me my lands!
Yes, as like because at this point, we know the fetch lands are not going to be in Dragons of Tarkir. We know the fetch lands are not going to be in Modern Masters. And we know they're not going to be in Magic Origins. So, but since we have Battle for Zendikar, chances are that's going to be where we're going to get the enemy color fetches.
But that hasn't been confirmed yet?
It hasn't been officially confirmed, but I think for all practical purposes, it's been confirmed because the enemy color fetches originally came out in the original Zendikar block. So I wouldn't see a reason why they would not release it.
I really hope they do, because I'd really like to see them in standard, but I'm not so sure that, they're going to definitely make it a thing, because people were saying for so long they were going to pull out the allied swords, and they were finally going to make those, and then they finally said, nope, this is never going to be a thing.
It's like, well, I think as interesting as it's going to be to have all 10 fetches in standard, at least for, probably 6 months, maybe at most.
Roundabouts.
Somewhere around 6 months. As interesting as it's going to be to have all 10 fetches in there, I think that it's kind of going back to the Tarmogoyf argument. Is one of the biggest barriers to entry for Modern and Legacy are the fetch lands.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to have anything really to do with what they put in Zendikar, simply because they seem to do their standard sets less for price purposing.
Well,
you know what I mean?
To a certain extent, yes, and to a certain extent, no. Because, the reason, the Onslaught block where the original Allied colored fetch lands were, had nothing to do with Tarkir.
Right.
So they just said, we need to put these fetch lands back into production so that people can get them. So we're going to put them in this block.
Right, but at the same time, the block they put them in really needed them.
It did, yes.
Because we got to the tricolors and everything was going into the tricolors, and really, to run a fucking standard deck, 90% of the time, you have 4 basic land in your deck.
I was like, and honestly, the fetches become even more important in Dragons of Tarkir because all the dragons are 2-colored, and they're all allied colored. So
I wouldn't say more important, I would say just as important, but that's still the same point, is that we really, really needed them. And I'm not so sure yet, simply because the other spoiler for Battle of Zendikar is the Eldrazi are coming back, that we're going to need them as much.
As I still think they're not going to give us shock lands or dual lands or anything like that to fetch up with them. So it's still going to be basic fetches, but I think they're just going to do it because, really, honestly, the only reason why I'm thinking they're going to be in Battle for Zendikar is because it's Zendikar. That's since we're going back to the plane that originally had it. It's just kind of like the original Ravnica and Return to Ravnica. The original Ravnica introduced the shock lands. Return to Ravnica brought them back.
I just don't think... I don't think either way. I don't think that it's a sure thing, and I don't think that it's not going to happen. I think there's every chance that it could not happen, as there is a chance that it will happen. I don't know if that just made sense, but it made sense in my head.
If I was putting money on it, if I was making a bet with someone right now, I would be on the betting they're going to be in Battle for Zendikar.
And I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't. I think it's far too soon to do that. I mean, the fetch lands made so much sense in the current sets, and they don't make sense with all the colorless creatures. They just don't. Unless they're also going to do something that really brings back multiple creatures, but same thing with what they're doing. This is just from a play perspective. This has nothing to do with story or money. From what they're doing with... I'm not done yet. From what they're doing with the dragons, and they're moving into most of the cards being monocolored or only dual-colored, it looks like they're pulling away from the multiple color sets, and they're moving back towards monocolored decks. Now, this could change the more we see from Magic of Origins, but what we keep seeing from Magic Origins is a bunch of monocolored shit. So it tells me we're getting away from all the dual-colored cards and lands and all that shit. So if they keep going in that direction, the fetches are just frankly not useful.
They're useful if not necessarily for standard, but for Modern and Legacy.
Right, and I'm talking strictly for standard, which, like I said, they seem to really try and fit their sets into more of a balanced form in standard, and then simply not break other shit.
Yeah, it's like I could see that. It's like it's just one of those things that I think WotC is starting to realize that their more eternal formats like Modern and Legacy are definitely picking up in popularity, and that's why I'm thinking we're going back to Zendikar. That's where the original enemy color fetches were. That's where we're gonna have, and also just because we have the Eldrazi, it doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be other creatures.
Right, and that's why I also brought into what we were seeing in Magic Origins and what we're seeing in Dragons of Tarkir. It's not just one thing I'm looking at. Right. It's the way the format looks like it's shifting is more towards monocolor, maybe dual color decks. Right. And when you go that way, the fetches don't work. I understand that they do need to release them for the Legacy and the Modern players to get them to get more, new school, standard, limited players into those formats to break down the monetary barrier. But at the same time, they still have to make sure that they have the bubble and they don't pop the bubble. And leaving some of those lands more expensive than the now only $20, $30 fetch lands does help that quite a bit. So they've popped a bubble and they've left a bubble.
The other thing that's going to make it really hard for them not to put the fetches into Battle for Zendikar is that I think just looking at the sheer numbers of like boxes sold and everything else, Khans of Tarkir has been by far their most successful set ever, and a big part of the reason why is because of the fetch lands. Is I think in every block they want to try to do something special with the mana. For example, in Theros we had the Scry lands.
Right.
In Return to Ravnica we had the Shock lands. And so they're always wanting to do kind of new stuff with their lands or return back to things that they've done in the past. And so with just considering how much Khans of Tarkir has sold solely based on literally about the only thing in there is fetch lands. And that's why the set has been so popular, is because people want to get fetch lands. I
disagree that that's the reason the set's been more popular, and I disagree because the number of boxes they've been selling each set has been increasing. So it only makes more sense that they're going to tap out at a point. And again, I'm not saying they're not going to be there. I'm just saying there's as many reasons not to put them there as there is to put them there.
I would say I just think the big one is story-wise, or not necessarily story-wise, but people associate Zendikar with the enemy color fetches, and I think that's...
Well, they also didn't associate Gideon with Theros, so...
That's true.
They're throwing all sorts of crazy shit at us, and I'm talking straight from a play perspective, the fetches don't work. Now, if you're looking at it from any other perspective, monetary-wise, and you want to look at it from Legacy and Modern, getting more people into that, yeah, it's a great idea. But standard format play-wise, it's not. It's a bad idea, especially if they're going towards more monocolored decks, like they did when Nykthos came out in whatever fucking set that was.
That was Theros, where Nykthos came out. Yeah. And I would say kind of sort of going back to sort of the interesting things they do with their mana bases. The other reason why I think we're going to see the fetches is there was a particular mechanic in the original Zendikar block called Landfall. It does something special whenever a land enters the battlefield.
And that's exactly why I wouldn't see them in Battle for Zendikar. I'd see them in the set afterwards.
Well, see, the thing is, though...
They usually don't introduce that many kind of mechanics all at once.
Landfall is kind of going back to just their classic Zendikar thing.
Oh, it changes nothing. It's an introduction. It just doesn't mean it's a reprint. It's an introduction, like Morphing. That was a reprint, but it's an introduction at the same time.
Yeah, it's possible. It's just that I'm...
No, it's possible. With the amount of explanations you had to have for how Morph works and how those triggers work, that was an introduction. Every match I went to for 3 weeks after that set came out was, this is how Morph works. And this is how Morph works. And this is how Morph works. And at the end, I'm like, fucking, we get it. If they don't understand by now, they can call a judge.
Well, admittedly, though, is like the original... what they did with Morph in this set is just beyond me anyway. And I just want to throw this out here now. I know this is a little bit off topic, but Megamorph is about the dumbest name for a mechanic in the history of Magic.
I thought it was the best name for what they were trying to do, because I sat down, I saw all the jokes about it, and I went, what the fuck else are you going to call that? Supermorph? That sounds retarded.
I don't know. Boosted
Ultra
Morph?
Morph? Boosted Morph? No, it all sounds dumb because you stuck a name in front of Morph. If they called it something different, fine, but it's Morph. It's not anything else. Like, they had no options for a good name. You sound like a Power Ranger. However you do this, you sound like a fucking Power Ranger. That's okay. Like, Morph in the first place sounded like Power Rangers.
It did. It was like, I don't know. It's just the name just catches me up. It's like
Megamorph. Power Rangers. Megamorph.
That's one of the things I'm glad Morph has never caught off on a standard constructed. Manifest has. Now, don't get me wrong, Manifest has become huge, but Morph, thankfully, has never had to
they
worry.
They haven't ever really made a card good enough for Morph to pick up in standard.
Literally, the only Morph, as far as I know, that's being played in standard is Ash Cloud Phoenix, and that's just because it becomes a Morph after you kill it the first time.
Yeah, not because it starts out as a Morph.
Not because you want to actually play it as a Morph.
There are some Morph is amazing and limited, so I'm okay with how shitty it is in standard, and it can be really, really good in EDH.
It's like, and actually, well, and one of the other quick things to talk about Morph and Megamorph really quickly. One of the things that kind of actually annoyed me a little bit about Dragons of Tarkir, there's no mana fixing. There's no dual lands.
This is what I'm talking about. I think they're moving away from it. I don't think they want us in those. I'd be really excited to see them, because they haven't done it in like 4 sets. But land that does shit, I mean, like, it gives your creatures lifelink, or it puts a token into play, or some shit like that. So they really haven't done that in a long time. And those lands are so much fun.
Or everybody's favorite, do something that, like, the land becomes a creature. Like,
I hate that. That irritates the shit out of me.
Mutavault.
They did that with Nissa. They did it, as like you said, as recently as Mutavault. They did it with, there was something else. Nissa. I'm going with Nissa. You know, they've been doing that. They haven't done this land deals damage, or this land, sacrifices a creature and you gain life. I want to see that stuff come back. Especially because most of that works with any color.
Yeah, that's true. It was like, and I don't know, maybe Zendikar would be a good place to introduce that. As I said, if I'm still putting money, on enemy color fetches in Battle for Zendikar, but I would definitely wouldn't mind them seeing either kind of those effect lands that, do something, or can like give haste to a creature if you pay a certain amount or something like that. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing some of those effects back in standard again.
Especially with the new Planeswalker Transformer creatures. So we can. I just realized in Magic Origins we're gonna have Transformers and Power Rangers.
Transformers and Megamorphs.
It's so exciting!
Oh my gosh.
I've lost my mind, so the show is over.
Now if they just bring back Battalion, we'll have G.I. Joe on top of everything else. So.
Yes! Oh my god! Okay, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Power Rangers. It's gonna be the best game ever. Seriously, the show's over. We're gonna go into the outro now.
I would say, well, before we go to the outro, because I just realized this, we have an email. Do you want to address the email really quickly?
I didn't know we had an email.
Yeah, we had an email from Talthar.
Talthar sent us an email. He totally did send us an email. I remember now. All right.
I got it pulled up here. So, dear Jane and Will, I tried to make a short email about Commander and failed, so I thought of this instead. Since there was an SCG Modern event recently, what are the biggest pros you both see to Modern and the biggest cons? What Modern decks interest you the most? What decks infuriate you the most? I personally would love to play Amulet Balloon, even if I would look somewhat foolish trying to pilot it. Keep up the good work, Telthar.
Thank you for your email, Telthar. We're going to actually have to keep our answer down to about 5 minutes, so I'm going to let the Modern expert take this question.
Okay.
So go ahead, Will.
The biggest pros I think to Modern right now is I think there is a very good variety right now. Especially after the last bannings, I think it definitely did open up the format a little bit more. Which is weird to say because that's also part of my issue with my probably biggest con to Modern as well, is that there are so many viable decks, and yet the answers to those decks are so narrow that it's really hard to find a solution that is like, okay, I can use this sideboard option for this, and this deck, where sometimes you, like, for example, in terms of decks that infuriate me the most, Affinity. I hate Affinity with a passion, just because it's literally turn one, I'm just going to dump my entire hand, and next turn I'm going to hit you for, 15, because I have 15 artifacts on the field. That just gets to the point where it just pisses me off. But the fact of the matter is, in Modern, you have to have sideboard slots specifically geared towards Affinity, or you will lose to Affinity. It is like and it's just one of those formats where you have to say, okay, I have to be willing to say, all right, I'm going to be willing to lose to this. I want to prepare for these big decks, but I'm willing to lose to, if I face, like, for example, in any Modern sideboard right now, you need to have something in there for Twin. Twin by far, I think, is probably the deck of the format right now. You need something for Affinity. You need some sort of graveyard interaction for anybody who want to try to do some sort of a reanimator type deck. You want to, especially with Tasigur, graveyard interaction works really well. Just be like, no, you can't delve your spells away for this. So, I'm trying to think of just some of the other ones. You always need some sort of an answer to Burn, because Burn is always popular, so you need some sort of a life gain. But there are literally probably 30, 40 decks that you can play against, and you just have to say, all right, I'm willing to lose to this deck. I'm willing to be prepared for this other deck. And some decks, depending on the deck you're playing, you're actually going to be favored against anyway, so you really don't have to put a lot of sideboard use in there for that. But you do have to. It's a very diverse metagame, which is a great thing, and it's also kind of a little bit of a disadvantage at sometimes. Is that it's very hard to plan and very hard to prep for it. The decks that I'm interested in playing right now, I really want. I've seen a lot of good decks with Tasigur. I really want to play a Tasigur deck right now. I think because getting a 4/5 for 1 mana, that's usually a better rate than even you get for a Tarmogoyf. And since I'm not willing to shell out, $600 for or $800 for a Tarmogoyf playset, I'm willing to go into black and play Tasigur. And I actually think Tasigur's second ability is a lot better than what Tarmogoyf's ability is anyway. But in terms of being able to get cards back, trying to think what other things. I think I hit all the answers to that. I think in terms of the deck that I want to play, I definitely would like to sit down and at least play test with Amulet Bloom. I don't think I would be really
combo decks.
I don't think I would be really great at it, but I
combo decks are tricky as fuck. You got a good Magic player when they can pull off a combo deck without giving away what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like as a general rule of thumb, the lesson that I've learned in Modern is if they're playing red and they're playing blue, when you get to turn 3, you stop tapping out for stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, because chances are when you get to turn 3, if you tap out, they're gonna be like, all right, end of your turn, I'll play Deceiver Exarch. Beginning of my turn, play this, red mana source.
Mm-hmm.
Splinter Twin, you're dead. So,
yeah, hold that counterspell.
Yeah, you gotta hold back a kill. Well, usually you gotta hold back a kill spell and a counterspell is what I've generally found is like you have to have a way to get the creature off the field or just counter it, and then usually they're gonna have a response to your counterspell, so you have to have another counterspell backup to be able to do that.
That's what a good combo player does, and that's what I'm saying. Is a good combo player because they hold back long enough to get their shit across without letting you overrun them at the same time. Yeah. So good luck with your Amulet of Bloom, Talthar. That's our podcast this week. We are alternate win condition. If you fucking forgot, I don't even know. I guess I might forget because I'm forgetful. But anyways, that's not important. If you want to find out more about what both of us are doing, you can follow us on Twitter. I am Janelle5, Janeelle, and the number 5. Our show's podcast, where you can find all the releases on all the different formats we're in, is at AWC Podcast. Sorry, and then Will has his own Twitter.
I do. Is at RedHawkWill. You can also email the show. The show has an email.
Just like Telthar.
awcpodcast@gmail.com. We definitely like getting emails. We would love to get more emails as well.
We love to hear from you guys, especially next week. We're thinking about having a judge on to give some pointers for the new set that's coming out, some of the new abilities. And if you guys have any judge questions, something you've been throwing around in your head, feel free to email the show and we'll start compiling those to talk to him.
For example, one question I know already right now that I'm going to ask him, because I know it doesn't work how everybody wants it to work, but everybody's like, oh, can I use Narset and Temporal Trespass to take 2 turns in a row? No, I don't think you can, because you exile Temporal Trespass as you cast it, so you can't rebound it with Narset.
But there are other things you can do. That is correct. You're right. That is how that works. That was already discussed at my Magic store. So, if you want to support the show, we have a whole bunch of ways that you can do it, depending on how you're listening. Like, for instance, on SoundCloud, if that's how you're listening to us, give us a like and then repost it. If you're listening on Stitcher, just a quick thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that. You're listening to us on YouTube, give us a comment, whatever you want to say, and then give us a like. iTunes, 5-star, with a review. We might start reading these if we start getting enough of them, so keep that in mind.
I'll be honest, I have not been diligent on looking on our iTunes to see if people have been
not just on iTunes, also on YouTube. We'll start reading these things. So
yeah. Absolutely.
And Will, why don't you tell them about our sponsor, Bolt Snap Bolt?
Yeah, BoltSnapBolt.net is a community with a bunch of different Magic players, different magical articles every week. That's actually where you'll find my blog, Force of Will at. But we actually, probably our most recent writers come on is started writing about Tiny Leaders. So if you're a fan of Tiny Leaders, definitely check it out. We're also, as far as I know, I don't have a name, unfortunately, but we just brought on someone to talk about Limited. So if you're a fan of Sealed or Draft or anything, you'll definitely want to come by the site and check it out. But a bunch of good articles every week. You'll find the podcast, of course, every other week on there. And then also on the site as well, if you want to support us financially, there is a Puka Trade referral link there. It's, of course, Puka Trade is a way to trade Magic cards. I don't want to go full deep into it. But if you click the referral link and sign up for Puka Trade through that site, you'll be supporting us and the site as well. So definitely want to encourage you.
Literally, you will be buying us Magic cards.
Yes, you'll be helping us get future Magic cards.
And then the money we're not spending on our decks, we will put back into the show.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
You give us enough for Tarmogoyf. That's what we're really saying. Let's get it. Let's not beat around the bush. Give us enough for a Tarmogoyf.
We've also both done a lot of blogs. Will just told you about his. I don't actually do a lot of blogs. I just lied to you, but I do some sometimes at speckandmisdirect.wordpress.com. I also do another podcast called 5 Gaming Things, where you'll hear me talk about video games, like the shitty Magic video game and how much I hated that shit. And, whatever else I'm playing. Like, right now I got back into WoW. God damn it. But
what, how did you do that?
There was a snow day! There was a snow day and I got bored!
No, you went back. How did you go? You can't go back.
Oh, I'm no longer sober. I was 2 years sober from World of Warcraft. Hi, my name's Janelle. I have a problem. I'm gonna go play as soon as we stop podcasting.
It's like... Tune in 2 weeks for a Garrison update.
Well, tune in 2 weeks for an intervention. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.